How you doing? Welcome to yet another episode of Bollywood, the podcast where we talk about movies with the people who make movies. Hey, what do I look like, a mook to you or something? I'm one of your co-hosts, Steve Hester, and with me as always is...
I didn't even know you spoke Greek. Andrew Roger Carson, that would be me. Here we are, we're coming in for episode 18.
Yeah.
Bum, 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 bum. Or episode 17.1, if you want to be a dick about it.
Yeah, because last week we had the absolutely amazing Richard Mirisch on talking about his career, but unfortunately there was too much to fit into one episode, so we've had to break it up into two separate ones. So here you are, you're going to be hearing the remainder of his interview later.
Indeed you will. This is going to be a very special episode, a bit long as well. Get yourself comfortable. We've got a lot of stuff to cover today, but I think we have to start the week off with two stories in particular. And one, the world's favourite web-spinning superhero.
Yes, yesterday there was a early release version of the Spider-Man No Way Home trailer. There were no finished visual effects in there. There was a great big watermark that was right across the middle of the video. We'll get onto that in a second. And it was filmed on a mobile phone with someone recording another mobile phone where the video was playing. So as you can imagine, it was massive potato quality. But I think mainly because of that, or maybe it was just ready to go out anyway, but Disney have clapped back today, releasing the official trailer with everything that's done and finalized. So there's a lot to go into there, but before we talk about the trailer as it actually is, I think we should talk about the actual leak, because I think that someone has got their hands onto this trailer and has just gone nuts with it. I don't actually think that the VFX artist whose name is going across the middle of the trailer actually leaked it themselves, because that would be career suicide.
It would be. You're not Alfred Molina and can get away with it.
No.
So I think, one, it's refreshing that someone other than Tom Holland actually spilled the beans.
Yeah, or Mark Ruffalo.
Or
Those
Mark
two are
Ruffalo.
just notorious for it.
Those infamous Marvel actors. I don't think it falls into the fault of the actual person, but I think that person has probably had the biggest grilling on a Monday morning that anyone has ever seen. And I think it is going to come down to some kind of data breach theft, a hacking of a person's computer who may have been working on it, and they've seen a file that probably says trailer version, etc., and basically just stole it.
Yeah, because if you're working as a VFX artist for one of the biggest companies in the world with a massive amount of NDAs up your arse, you're not going to put a gun to your career's head by releasing this yourself, are you?
No, and I would hate to have been that person when that was released. That's the one company, probably the one figurehead you don't want coming down on you. They've done so well to keep us all on the edge of our seat waiting for this trailer, and it was being released this week anyway.
Mm-hmm.
To be honest, anyone who watched it, you're an idiot. You are a complete tool.
I did actually watch it, so lay it on
and
me.
You're a complete tool. I've done a lot of writing up on the stuff about data hacks and leaks and all stuff like that. I am a person who is vehemently against it. It's the same thing when, was it X-Men Origins Wolverine? A work print of that got released online way back in, I think it was like 2009.
Yeah, there was virtually no finished special effects in that at all.
What are you gaining from watching that? You're seeing an incomplete version of a movie. Call me old-fashioned.
You're old-fashioned.
Yeah, I like seeing stuff that actually, is finished and completed and is ready to be shown and marvelled at. No pun intended.
On the other hand, though, I can have a few amusing moments, like when the trailer for The Mummy dropped and it didn't have the finished audio. So you just had those isolated Tom Cruise screams and shouts with no VFX. It was just... That was actually quite amusing. So I think that time the leakers actually came up with something good. Although, I think, wasn't that the actual studio that released that and they just made a balls up the first one and then they went, oh no, we shouldn't release that one?
Possibly, I don't remember that. I'll choose to believe it. I'm not fully convinced that is Doctor Strange.
Why not?
I'm going to go with a wild theory here because it seems incredibly out of character for Doctor Strange to actually do what he does in this trailer.
Really? It seems perfectly to me, because he's basically Tony Stark, but with magic.
I am going to go on a line that this is actually Mephisto in disguise. As the trailer nicely points out in one scene, a sign saying Devil in Disguise, alluding to Peter Parker.
Uh-huh.
And you know what Marvel is like. They love to throw those little touches in there. And something didn't sit right with me about the Doctor Strange character. You know, and sure, the mannerisms are there, but I have a feeling that this might be Mephisto, because in the comic books, Spider-Man did initially make the deal with Mephisto, not Doctor Strange.
Right, well, in that case, that would then tie very neatly into WandaVision as well, wouldn't it?
And Doctor Strange in a Multiverse of Madness,
yeah,
of which Mephisto was a major character.
Okay, well, this is definitely a rabbit hole that we're going to have to look forward to as we get drip-fed teaser trailers and trailers for the teaser trailers, and then trailers
Yes.
that are then teasing the teaser trailers that are then for the trailers.
Well, it is something to keep you wondering.
Yes.
And speaking of wondering, Steve.
Oh, that was good.
That's good.
That was good.
We need to get on to what's in the box from last week.
Yes, we do. Yeah, 'cause usually we kick off with this, but we had all this Spider-Man talk. But yeah, last week I watched The Wanderers, which was a 1979 movie about gangs in New York. It's based on the book by Richard Price, who, as far as I'm aware, is kind of semi-autobiographical insofar as they were gangs in his particular neighborhood, and I think he kind of based them on there. It was directed by Philip Kaufman, and I'm not entirely sure where I sit with this one.
Ooh.
I'm not, because the best way to describe this movie is it's like Grease meets Animal House.
Okay.
You've got all the gangs, all the hair going on, all the 1950s music, but there's also tons of swearing and really kind of explicit sex references, even though there's not explicit sex acts going on. But I mean, like, the opening is straight out of the end of Kentucky Fried Movie.
Right.
Like, the news is on in the background and they're having sex. But it's a weird movie because it feels a lot of the time like it's improv theatre. As if the director basically said, okay, guys, here we're going to go. We're going to do this scene, and you've got a couple of lines that you need to get out, and the rest of it just kind of shout all over each other. There are moments where I was kind of siding with it, and it's the more quieter, measured moments, such as towards the end, the main character, Richie, is basically cheated on his girlfriend, Despy, with Karen Allen's character. Despy is like the daughter of a local gang leader, kind of a mafioso. He ends up having to marry her because she's pregnant, but there's a wonderful moment where the two of them are on the street and they're watching the breaking news about the assassination of JFK, and it's kind of intimating that there's this change, this shift going on, moving from childhood into adulthood, and you start to realize, okay, all the world doesn't revolve around these few little square blocks, and that there's more out there, and things need to be taken seriously. And then other moments as well, such as the parental issues that are going on. But throughout it all, it felt like a movie that couldn't sit still, and yet dragged at the same time. Every single scene was full of constant talking over each other, and people acting about and moving around really animatedly. And yet every single scene seemed to go on for an age before anything of even any remarkable consequences said. And that's why I kind of likened it to Animal House, because that's got lots of non sequiturs that are going on in it, which don't ultimately add to the overall plot, but they are nice little moments.
Well, it was the same year.
Yeah, and Karen Allen was in both of them.
Uh-huh.
But no, I mean, I could fire out a load of facts from this. Like, you know, it's got Ken Foree in it. The guy that plays Terra, Erland Van Lith, played Dynamo in Running Man.
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up.
Yeah, oh, mate, there was no... As soon as he came on screen, I was like, I know him from somewhere. But yeah, he was Dynamo! And like is the tradition for every teenage film, none of the actors in it are below 30. But yeah, it didn't kind of sit with me, and I don't know why. And it's so hard to put an actual finger on what it is that I didn't like, but it just didn't sit well.
Well, they were all based on real gangs, and as you say, it is really autobiographical. Of course, the biggest highlight is "Don't fuck with the Wongs."
Yep.
Yes, you had the feared Ducky Boys, of which Ace Frehley was actually a real life member of the Ducky Boys.
Yep.
In his youth.
He's the Kiss guitarist.
Yes. In case any of you savages don't know history
or care about Kiss.
I mean, I grew up with this film. I think it was among an entire box of movies that I received as a kid, along with The Warriors and a few other movies. The only thing that I've got to really complain about in the movie was Pee-wee's accent, which was just, it's not good.
No, it's proper hardcore, either Bronx or Queens, that kind of, hey, what you talking about over here? This guy said that you look like a dick with no balls! It's like, oh, God, no, shut up, please.
It's absolutely awful.
It's awful, and it's also a little bit uncomfortable because the actress who played Pee-wee, Linda Mans, she was old enough, but there's a scene where she's kissing Terra, and he's like he looks, anyway, in the movie, he looks like he's about 7 foot, and she looks like she's about 4 foot. And it's honestly a little bit uncomfortable to watch, not only because of the fact that, you know, he's not an attractive man, let's put that out there, but the fact that she's so small.
Yeah, it does leave not much to the imagination, I guess.
No.
So you weren't a fan of The Wanderers, really?
No, not really. I mean, I think towards the very, very end, when things started to calm down a bit, I started to enjoy it more. I mean, a lot of it just seems to be based around, gang warfare, and then you realise most of the gang warfare, realistically, is all about a football game.
That took 3 days to film.
Well, that doesn't surprise me, actually, because I did do an American football film, but I'm not going to talk about that more here.
Just like everyone else doesn't.
Yeah, the latter end of it seemed to resonate more, but the beginning is just this awful mess of cacophony and swearing, and you could say that it's representative of the way that kids talk, but ultimately it's just too much, and it buries a lot of the characters in it, because they all kind of congeal in this soup of swearing and greased hair and yellow jackets, and they all become an identical copy of each other, trying to outdo each other with the swearing and the shouting. And
you know what this movie needed?
What?
Don Harvey and Kathy Bates. It'd have been a classic.
Yeah.
So yes, okay, well that was the What's in the Box for The Wanderers. Mm-hmm. I'm sure this week you're going to have something a lot more upbeat.
Oh, God, I hope so.
You can hope so.
Yeah.
But while we celebrate The Wanderers, we've also got to notion to some anniversaries this week.
We watch them again all of the time, or we get them on Prime for free. But we only know how old they are when we learn their anniversary.
Yuck, 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 yuck.
Now, did you really just throw up because I know you've not been feeling well, or was that your actual country and western poke for the week?
No, that was my kind of like yokel
Yuck, 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 yuck.
kind of voice.
You sound like Goofy.
Gorge.
Well, it's a shame. It's a shame you didn't go, "Are you handsome stranger?" Because that would have played incredibly well into this week's anniversary section. It's known as, in some circles, as the last of the classic Schwarzenegger action movies of the 90s. 25 years ago, Eraser was released.
Oh, one of Bill's favourites.
One of Bill's favourites. It's one of his favourites so much he wouldn't even do a show on it. That's not saying it's a bad film. Actually, it's just fun. It's a fun Arnie movie.
It's what it is. There was a kind of weirdness of the Arnie movies in the mid to late 90s. Because you had stuff like Last Boy Scout, which I thought... Not Last Boy Scout.
Last Boy Scout?
No.
That was a weird movie for Arnie. He didn't look anything like himself in it.
Yeah, he shaved his head and everything. No, I mean Last Action Hero, which I think is a massively underrated movie, which did not get its dues and was way ahead of its time.
I love that movie.
But yeah, you had stuff like that and The Sixth Day, and it all kind of had this weird kind of late 90s shine, but it just made it look like it was like a TV movie. It didn't have that kind of filmic feel to it that even his early stuff did, and they were probably shot on really, really cheap, dirty 16mm cameras or somewhere. No, I didn't mind this. I mean, the crocodile bit, or the alligator bit, whatever they were, that was featured in the trailer looked awful.
Oh, the infamous scene where he shoots an alligator and calls him luggage.
Yeah.
And the way I said it was probably more funny than it is in the movie.
Your luggage. He's got his moments, though. He's got a few nice little action scenes. What was it? What was the name of the woman in it? Vanessa
Williams.
Vanessa Williams, yeah. I thought she was better than your average female protagonist in one of these movies.
Well, the thing that always sticks in my mind is how the BBFC screwed up with this movie to an extent that I have never, ever seen. So there's a scene where Arnie, James Caan, and Caan's sidekicks, henchmen, whatever you call them.
Nick Chinland is one of them as well.
Nick Chinland was one of them, yes. Hi, Nick. We know you listen.
Yeah.
They go to an alleged witness's house to go and safeguard them, and they get into this kind of gunfight with these people that are there, and Arnie ends up like chasing them down throughout the house and shooting them, while James Caan, spoiler alert, actually kills the witness upstairs. But for some strange reason, on the VHS rental release of this movie when it came out, the editing was all over the place. So they'd spliced scenes and the music and everything, and it became the most choppiest scene you will ever watch. Do you remember it?
I remember it, yeah. You could get away with it if the music was edited right. But it suddenly just cuts off and then starts up again, and then there's a really obviously completely different piece of music in between that just shows up that it's just been absolutely butchered.
I saw it on, I think it was Stars in LA, because I go there to watch all my Warner Brothers movies from the 90s that were killed by the BBFC. You can just put them on Stars, 10 o'clock in the morning, watch Under Siege 1, 2, On Deadly Ground if you're really desperate, and Eraser was on. It was either that or watch Volcano for like the 40,000th time. So I watched Eraser, and for the first time I actually saw it the way it was actually really edited. And I was like, this just highlights more how bad a job that was done. And I don't think we've ever got an answer of why.
Was there anything particularly graphic? Or
No, it wasn't anything particularly graphic. But the BBFC were real bastards to Warner Brothers releases, because anything violent was cut out of them. I'm convinced Under Siege 2 was only 10 minutes long. Right? Because the amount of stuff cut out of that. What else was cut that was majorly cut? I mean, Under Siege, a lot of Steven Seagal's films were seriously cut.
Yeah, the first one was, without question.
The most noticeable one, Hard to Kill was one of them, and Out for Justice especially. Right? It was amazing how much stuff was cut out of this thing. It must have reduced the running time by a good 7 to 8 minutes. Yeah, Eraser was the biggest telling sign of it, because there was no effort put in whatsoever.
No, it was shocking. It's absolutely shocking.
Yeah, otherwise it's it's a fun film. It's directed by Chuck Russell. I think that there was some history behind that movie that hopefully one day we'll all hear about. I guarantee you at this point next week I'll get a WhatsApp.
You will do. You'll be like,
I
know.
Yes, so 25 years old for Eraser. And 15 years ago, Steve, and I'm not going to talk about this because it's a film that I didn't really like, a movie called You, Me and Dupree was released.
What was the other one where Jim Carrey had a split personality?
Me, Myself and Irene.
Me, Myself and Irene, that's the one. Yeah, no, You, Me and Dupree, I've not seen it, no, because it just seems like rom-com shite.
Okay, well, this is the movie where basically Matt Dillon and Kate Hudson, they're newlyweds, they've just got married, and their best man is Owen Wilson.
Wow.
You know what shit is going to happen. Basically, he decides to stay with them, much to their annoyance, blah, 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 ends up with them falling out, and then Owen Wilson suddenly changes his ways, and they get back together and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but I just literally looked it up here, because I couldn't remember who the bride was. I think at the end of the day, it was supposed to be Rachel McAdams and Ewan McGregor were the original choices for those roles, and thank God they didn't do it. But it's great because I kind of came onto IMDb, and you can do this at home, and the first image that comes up is of Kate Hudson's arse in her panties.
Okay, so she's
That apparently is the highlight to open up on for you, me, and Dupree. But
yeah.
I got forced to watch this movie. It's kind of runs that formula, and I'm sure they had fun making it. It's not a standout. It's kind of gets lost in those types of movies that are just always there. Yeah, they're those kind of movies you can tell what's going to happen within the first 5 minutes of watching it.
It basically sounds like okay, I know he's got a similar name, but he sounds like Marley and Me, only with Owen Wilson instead of a dog. He comes in and he ruins their lives. Oh, but then he actually manages to bring them together at the end, and everybody's happy. Oh wait, but there's a comedy coda at the end. No.
Oh yes, but you know what the shocking thing about it is?
What?
It's directed by Anthony and Joe Russo.
Seriously?
Seriously.
Oh, God, boys.
Those responsible for the biggest movie of all time, Avengers Endgame, directed this movie. And the fact that they never cast Kate Hudson, Owen Wilson, and Matt Dillon in their Marvel movies. I might say that. Maybe they just try and forget about this. I don't know. I mean, it's probably not a bad film. It probably just, from my remembrance of it, I just remember that Owen Wilson was just playing that Wedding Crashers style role.
Yeah, because Lord knows I love myself some Owen Wilson. I think he just feels like the kind of person that you could very happily go for a pint with. And I think that's a good way of thinking about people. Could I go for a pint with this person? Yes, I could. But he doesn't really have a massive acting range, does he?
It depends. I mean, he was brilliant in a movie called The Minus Man, which was an actual serious thriller. He's tried his hand at action in Behind Enemy Lines, which was basically Bat 21 with the roles reversed.
Yeah.
If Owen Wilson was replaced by Danny Glover in that movie, it would have been Bat 21 mirror image, because Gene Hackman was in both. He has a kind of specialised range when it comes to movies.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that we want to see it all the time. With him, it works incredibly well in movies like Midnight in Paris, and I suppose The Wedding Crashers. I think Wedding Crashers is an alright movie. We just didn't need to see it again with that one where him and Vince Vaughn went to Google.
Yeah. I mean, he's done alright in Loki recently.
I actually do prefer him in Loki. I thought he did a fantastic job on that. And obviously when he works for Wes Anderson, that's the bread and butter.
Mm-hmm.
Judgment's out on Starsky and Hutch, I guess. So some people just never forget that. Well, that's the anniversaries for this week. Short and sweet. Now, the Richard Mirisch episode 2, we have a lot to talk about, covering his time from 2000 up to the present day. So we have stuff to talk about along the lines of The Reaping, Gothic. Obviously, The Matrix is what we're going to start out with, all the way leading to Godzilla vs. Kong. Okay, so there is a lot of stuff to cram in here. There are obviously, quite a lot of points of Richard's career that we didn't get to cover in this, which we will hopefully cover in another episode. But for now, we're going to jump right in where we left off last week with our interview with producer Richard Mirisch.
Well, The Matrix is one of the most revolutionary movies that's ever made. And I know for a fact it's one of my favourite films. I think the summer that it came out, I must have seen it about 4 times at the cinema. And one of the key points of that were the special effects, which a lot of them were never before attempted. Bullet time in particular was something that was perfected with this movie. But the VFX didn't get an awful lot of respect at the time on set, from what I hear. So were you a champion for that cause?
I think at the time, the movies that we were making, on-set visual effect needs were very secondary, while we were shooting. Mostly the crew didn't know or understand what was happening, and it lengthened the day when we had to stop and shoot plates and green screens and blue screens, and people would bring out cubes and shoot lighting references. And, I think most of the crew just wanted to get on with it. And it was really kind of early days. You didn't quite know what would you see or what would you do. But on The Matrix, the visual effects that were lined up were given a great deal of respect and time, and in such that Barry Osborne, one of the line producer, we had an entire second unit for about 86 days. It was lined up and budgeted, and it was the size of us, like almost like a normal crew for a regular picture. And coming down to Australia, I was looking for a piece of the pie. Didn't know, again, was unclear during shooting what I was going to do. Joel just sent me down there, and there was no really specific mandate. And so I got down there, and everybody sort of looked at me like, "Why are you here? What are you doing?" And I kind of shrugged, and I said, "I'm here to be helpful and do whatever I can." And I mean, I remember early doing like a visual effects breakdown for Barry Osborne. It's just sitting at a typewriter and going through the script, and I think he was just giving me something to do, and just kind of, what do you think are visual effects? At that, they were already, John Gaeta was hired, and the producing team was being lined up. And I think it was maybe, again, it was early days. We had two guys doing pre-visualization, which I had never seen before on a computer, working on some shots. And Diana Giorgiuti came on to be one of the digital producers. But it was early days, and just sort of sketching out what had to be done while the schedule was being made. And what was really helpful was that there were storyboards for the entire movie that were beautifully rendered, and we all got a notebook. And that was our Bible. That's what we used throughout the shooting, because there were still so many questions about what things would look like and how would we do them. And we just were always referred to go look at the storyboard and shoot that frame. And so I said to Barry, like, what's the second unit going to be doing? And he said, well, they're going to be doing a lot of the time intense shots. And some days there'll only be 2 or 3 shots that they will be doing. Other times they'll be doing pickups, and other times they'll be doing this thing we're calling bullet time, where there's a lot of setup and it just needs time and focus to be executed. And I said, well, that sounds great. How about letting me kind of get involved there? And he said, great. I think it was just also a way to get rid of me, so I wasn't shadowing him the entire time, and he's like, great, go take the second unit. So I did that. I made the second unit my baby, and what a tremendous group of people and technicians, and really formed a bond. And I was with them the entire time, literally after day one of shooting. The first day of shooting, they were shooting the scene of where Thomas Anderson gets the FedEx. He's in his little cubicle. That was like the first shot. The FedEx guy comes in and he opens the FedEx, and he he drops the cell phone into his hand. And I watched that scene, and it was it was okay. It was cool. I was just sort of sitting there, but at the same time, up on the roof, the second unit was shooting the sequence where Neo and Morpheus are hanging from the helicopter and being thrown around Sydney. So I went upstairs and onto the roof, and I was watching the second unit. I was like, main unit or second unit? Where am I going to hang out today? Well, it was an obvious no-brainer. So that's where I made my move to hang with the second unit after day one. Now, in terms of championing visual effects, that particular movie, the second unit had plenty of time and setup. Barry Osborne is a very bright producer and knew that we needed the time to do a lot of these things. And the main unit, of course, the shoot went on much longer than what was budgeted. But at a certain point, look, we were down in Australia. We did not have executives hanging around us. The dailies were going back, and I think people were loving the dailies. Not quite sure how it would all come together, quite honestly, but very impressed with the material they were seeing. And as the shoot went on and we needed more time, we got it. And I think at the end of the day, it was closer to about 120 days of shooting. The second unit was, I think, about 86 days. And then when that ended, we turned into a smaller unit to pick up elements and shoot certain things. for a while, and then we became a micro unit with me and Ross Emery, the cinematographer, and I think Frank Flick, the first, AC, like the three of us running around picking up little kernels of material as well, as the shoot extended.
Well, I have to ask this as you're here, but given that the Wachowskis' big film before then was Bound, and they were coming into such an expensive and effects-laden movie, was there any kind of undercurrent of do these guys really know what it is that they're doing? How well did everything come together on set, and were there any misgivings going on at all?
No. I mean, Bound is a phenomenal movie. Maybe you should put it in the box.
Too late. I've seen it.
It's in there.
Oh, okay, it's in there. Bound is a phenomenal movie, and I mean, they made that movie for what, $5 or $6 million, and you see the style, the technique, and a number of the people that a few people that worked on that also worked on The Matrix. I mean, listen, the story is well known that getting The Matrix made was not an easy process, and Larry and Andy at the time needed to fight to stay on as directors, and they really had to board the entire movie, which they did. And I think that with Joel championing them and the work that they had done on Bound and the storyboards, and then look, they sent us to Australia at the time. The dollar was incredibly strong. I think it was 65 cents or something to the dollar. So they hedged on the money and sent us down there, which turned out to be a blessing because, we were alone in our world, and the footage, as said, was so terrific that the studio stayed away. They knew exactly what they were doing from day one, and they're very quiet, introspective people, and not entirely approachable. As a second unit, I remember within the first week, we shot some footage. We would do dailies every night. They would do all the first unit dailies. This is when we ran film. I mean, after day 2 or 3, not many people were at dailies. The days were long, and the Aussie crew liked to go drink. So, I mean, by the way, we did have alcohol at dailies. I don't know. I guess I can say that now. It was wine. We weren't like pounding tequila shots or anything, but we had, wine, and we had to set up a projection room. We were sort of the first people at Fox Studios. I think Babe the Pig had shot there, but some of the stages we were on, I mean, the paint was just drawing, and they weren't set up. There was no theater. We had to jimmy a theater and, bring out a card table and put some wine on it. But we'd watch dailies. Bruce Hunt, the second unit director, and Ross Emery, the cinematographer, and Toby Pease, one of the ADs. Like the four of us would go to dailies, and we'd wait for all the first unit dailies to get done. We'd watch the second unit dailies, and very early on, the Wachowskis made it clear to Bruce and to us, like, to shoot the storyboard page. Like, if you want to shoot something different, great. But shoot what's on the page and get a few good takes. And then if you have time, you want to shoot something different, go ahead. But they were insistent on, again, getting the storyboard because, look, they had a comic book background and they had laid it out and they knew exactly what it was going to be, where the rest of us didn't. And so for a director, for Bruce, I think it was a little tough to take because they're basically saying, just do this. And he wanted to get creative, of course, and it was hard initially for him. But then at the beginning of days when we were shooting, we'd go to them early in the day and, okay, how do you want this shot? And they just stare at us, kind of have a wry smile, and just point to the damn storyboard. I mean, there was no discussion that was going to be had about doing something. If they weren't going to be able to be there to shoot it themselves, they were going to make damn sure that they got what they wanted via the illustrations. And so we followed the illustrations. We'd set the composition up, and we'd stand by the camera and like A/B the board to the frame. And what was terrific was seeing it come to life. Everything was very detailed and precise because we had the time. And, sometimes certain days we were just getting establishing shots. We would like go to great lengths to make sure to really make the page come alive. And then we were really hopeful going into dailies the next day that we would get a pat on the back. When they finally would show our material, we afterwards, we kind of approach them like waiting to hear, isn't this amazing? Wow, you guys did great, wanting the blessing. And we would get pretty good, and pretty good was successful. I mean, if we got a pretty good, after a time, we learned that was really great. The guys at the time were so even keel, just so chill, but knew what they wanted and got it. Again, when we finished shooting, no idea what the picture was going to ultimately turn out. And that's a movie that I did not do post-production on. It was about an 8-month experience for me. And then I traveled Australia for a month with a buddy of mine. And I mean, honestly, the first time I saw the film was at the premiere. I was at the Fox Theater in Westwood, sitting up in the balcony, and like everybody else, was blown away. I mean, it moved so fast. I kept trying to we did that shot. Oh, wait, we did that. That's in there. I was really proud. So, I mean, basically, most everything that we shot as a unit and the work that we did was there. And that's, again, because their direction was so precise. And again, go to those boards. That was the mantra. Go to the storyboards.
Well, the film was groundbreaking for many reasons. We could go into so much detail about the special effects, but one which stood out most was the helicopter crash, which was really driven home in the commercials and TV spots for the movie. Now, how was that actually achieved?
Well, that sequence was the second unit sequence. It was a miniature, I think it was quarter scale helicopter that was, rigged by an arm to fire into a quarter scale building that was erected. We didn't shoot that at the studio. It was quite a distance away from the studio. I think it was like close to an hour drive to get to the set. And the set was under construction for a long time. What I do remember prior to the actual shoot day was how many different tests we did on exploding glass. The glass had to be tempered in a very precise manner. So we shot many, many tests at many different speeds. And that went on for a while. And while they were constructing the set, I mean, we had days designated, on light days of shooting for the second unit to go out and check on the build and the construction of it. It was turned into such a massive set piece that finally on the day of shooting, I remember, I think we had a call sheet that was over 30 pages. And so much of it had to do with, we were out in the sticks, but we had to move people out of their farms and houses for a couple hours when we were going to do what we call the event, because they were worried about the blast radius and the noise. I mean, we had livestock moved. I remember, and I was like, isn't this overkill? Like, I mean, really? Like, this is what, I mean, we're just going to blow up a little, a little like helicopter. I mean, what's the big deal? It was a big deal. There was an enormous amount of preparation that went in, not just about, on the getting the glass properly designed and moving people out of their homes. I think we took them all to a tent and gave them breakfast. I mean, people were really cool about it. I mean, somehow they let us do it. And we shot it with natural light. So we had to go out there a few times to get an exact time of when the lighting worked for the shot. And it was very precise. It was very early morning. I think, I don't remember the exact time. It was something like, 6:18. Ross Emery is like, we have to shoot right at 6:18. The event has to go off right then, or I can't promise it will be lit properly. And I'm like, wow, that's pretty precise, Ross. He's like, all right, I'll give you a 10-minute window. Like you have 5 minutes this way and 5 minutes that way. I'm like, okay, well, that's not a lot better, but it's something. And, we had been out, I think it was like a 7-camera shoot, and we had to create a bunker. We all went into a bunker, and everything had to be fired off via remote. And we had little monitors that were set up. The setup and the preparation was quite extraordinary, particularly from a camera vantage point. And, we were there the couple days before to get set up. And then we were there the night before setting up and really getting ready. And we had achieved our prep guidance. We were in the bunker. And what had to be done at that time was the special effects people had to set off a little blast to get the arm of what was holding the helicopter to make its movement into the glass. So that had to be, triggered and rigged and exploded. And we had the cameras all ready to go. I think the main camera straight ahead was I think it was a Photosonics camera running at 300 frames. All the cameras were in boxes, and we knew also we didn't have a lot of time. It was a short event. And by the way, we knew we only had one take. This was not something that you were going to shoot again. I mean, you could maybe, shoot a pickup of the helicopter inside after the event, but this was designed as a one-off event to shoot. So you better have enough film, your timing better be right. And the Wachowskis were not actually out there for when this happened. Neither was Bill Pope. Neither was Barry Osborne. Gaeta was out there, and I think Yannick Serge, the other visual effect supervisor, was out there. But it was kind of us. It was sort of like the second unit. I do remember Barry kind of calling me, like, how's it going? Remember, you've got one shot at this, don't fuck this up, and no pressure at all or anything. And this was deep into the shoot. So this was very deep into the shoot. And as said, so much time had gone into the setup. And so we get into position, the time is near, and the assistant director, Toby Pease, calls action. The cameras start to go, and very quickly, Steve Courtley, who was our special effects supervisor, yelled, "Stop, stop, 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 stop." And all the cameras shut down. Like, what? He's like, the trigger isn't working. The trigger isn't working to set off the helicopter. And we're like, oh, we've got 10 minutes here. Ross Emery is telling me we've got 10 minutes to fire this off, and we can't even, now I don't know, is there enough film in the mags? Because changing the mags was no small deal. We all had to be in a bunker because there was the possibility of of the blast going off from the trigger, and Steve was like, I got to run out there. I've got to go out there. And, panic ensued. We all did quick checks. I think one of the cameras needed a quick mag change, and Steve was running out there to figure out the trigger to let the helicopter fly. The clock is ticking. I'm looking over at Ross Emery, who's basically kind of shrugging and saying, like, this ain't on me anymore. Like, if you don't get, and I'm like, Ross, what do you think? Can we do? And he's like, it's 6:17. You have 1 minute. And then after that, I can't promise that the light will be perfect. And I turned to Gaeta and I'm like, oh my God, well, what can you fix this? I mean, if it's 6:23, did we screw it up? I mean, should we call it off? Should we call it off and come back tomorrow to fight another day? And I mean, it was chaotic, and Courtley is out there trying to trigger it. They're trying to, get the camera mag going. Emery's in the corner sort of shaking his head, and I'm talking to the AD and, Toby, what do you think? It was like we had to take a straw poll right then and there about whether we should do this or not. And Toby, being the great AD that he is, like, Richard, we have a very full day tomorrow. I mean, we can't come back here. This will set off a number of issues. And I'm thinking I should call Barry Osborne. What are we going to do? Well, the team was really efficient. The mag got changed. Courtley came back and said, okay, I've got it. It'll work this time. We're a few minutes past when Ross gave us the window, and I took a very quick straw poll. Like, what do you think? What do you think? Yes, no, yes, no. Should we do it? Should we not do it? Should we not? People were like, yeah, I don't, yeah, well, there was no real consensus, but I think everybody knew they wanted to do it because they didn't want to come back here the next night. We wanted to just do it and get it off. And so we as a group kind of went, okay, fine, let's do it. And we call rolling and the cameras are cranked and going, and the event was over in like 3 seconds. And that was it. Like it was like literally like it exploded. The helicopter went into the glass. By the way, it went into the glass. It wasn't like fireworks went off and people were clapping when you see a stunt or something that had taken up this amount of time and energy and preparation. And when a stunt comes off on a set, people are like, yes, you're high-fiving, you've pulled off something magical. And this happens, and the helicopter went into the glass. It broke the glass, and the camera shut off, and we just all kind of looked at each other, and I like looked at Gator and I went, that was it? Like, so that's it? Like, so now what? Are you good? And he went, yeah, I think it was good. And we all went, yeah, look good. So the video playback operator, wonderful guy named Anthony Toy Star, we're like, okay, play him back, let's play him back. Like, go to the main camera, go to that front camera first. Again, we were looking at probably a 6-inch by 6-inch black and white screen, and he plays it. We're all huddled around it, and you see like a little helicopter with an arm on it, kind of like swing into a piece of glass. And we all looked at it and we're like, yeah, that looked pretty good. That was all right. Like, wow, okay, the glass broke around it. We were thrilled, like there was a little, like a little fire explosion behind it that you could now see. And, then we're okay, let's look at this camera. Okay, let's look at this camera. Let's look at this camera. We looked at all the cameras and there was nothing to be done. As said, there wasn't a take two. And we went, okay, cool. And we packed up and left. And the next day at Daly's, the unit, for some like everybody came to Daly's that night for some reason. I guess so much time and energy. And I think we were joking, it became tedious for the second unit because we had to sit through all this first unit BS. Like, who wants to see Keanu and Carrie Ann and Fishburne when you can see a quarter scale helicopter blow into a piece of tempered glass? We were a bit riled up. We must have had too much wine. I remember sitting in Daly's. We were like, come on. We want the second unit. And they turned around and told us to shut up. And they finally got to the Daly's. And I got to say, like, it looked really good. At that point, I couldn't visualize how the rippling glass would look when they were done with it. But when the helicopter went in, the glass that had been tempered and put out in a concentric explosion, broke, like boom, 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 like you could see it. And I think we had gotten the scale properly done. And we were whooping and hollering again, like, woo, we pulled it off. And, we're telling our story. And I think, again, we went to the Wachowskis afterwards, and we were really now expecting, like, great job, like amazing. And we got maybe a slightly more animated, pretty good. They might have said good. We took that again as a huge compliment. We were like, we did it. They're happy. That's all you want to do when you're shooting a movie. All you really want to do when you're shooting is please the director, is give them what they want, because that's your job. And it was tough to please them, but we worked our asses off, whether it was this miniature helicopter explosion or bullet time. We did all the bullet time work as well to please them and give them what they needed. And I think if you watch the movie, most everything we did is in there, is used. So we're all, as a unit, a second unit in particular, we're all pretty proud of that.
Well, definitely. The 2000s were shaped by The Matrix, and it really changed for yourself as the millennium kind of opened the doors to new kinds of cinema, new cinema tastes. And you spent those first early years working with Joel Silver again on such movies as Cradle to the Grave, etc., as well as producing the horror movies such as 13 Ghosts and Ghost Ship. And Ghost Ship obviously has one of the greatest openings
Yeah.
in a horror movie ever. But it kind of opened up something else very special for you as well.
It did. And it wasn't the blood and guts of the opening sequence, but that was pretty cool. I mean, K and B did a great job, with torso, you had to walk around lots of torsos and guts on the deck where we were shooting. I met my future wife on Ghost Ship. Her name is Belen Mirisch, and I actually had the great foresight to hire her. She was the first person I met to interview to work in our editorial room. And I obviously, saw this beautiful young woman, but she was way too young for me. And I got my dirty old man thoughts out of my head. But I hired her. I wasn't a fool. She was incredibly intelligent and capable. I think I spent the interview with her telling her about a 2-week driving tour I took of Perth with my brother. And God bless her, she stayed interested and listened to my bullshit. And so I kind of knew, like, okay, she's going to be a great asset to the team. And we were friends during the shoot. It wasn't until many years later we stayed in touch. And interestingly enough, many years later, I think it was like 2005 or 6. So it wasn't that many years later. It was a few years later. We were having a Matrix reunion dinner, and she was in town, and she didn't work on the Matrix, but it was kind of like, my the Australian friends and the group of Aussies that I'd formed friendship with. And Belen was in town working for Sony ImageWorks. I think she was working on Ghost Rider. She was their visual effects coordinator. And we had reconnected at this dinner. And the rest, as they say, is history. We were pretty much together. I think we went on a date a week later and had been together ever since, and have our 2 beautiful girls, Grace and Sophie, 14, and Sophie's turning 12 next month. So the Ghost Ship experience, while being a terrific shooting experience on many levels, obviously the greatest thing that ever happened to me in my life was meeting Belen and later marrying her.
And obviously, while you were kind of doing these horror movies, it also led to Gothica, which is kind of a fan favorite, kind of cult horror movie that's started to getting reappreciated nowadays. And obviously, it reunited you with Robert Downey Jr., who was kind of at the beginning of his evolution back into a bankable star after his troubles. I understand you made this movie in Montreal, and you were kind of present for an incredible positive in Robert's life during that movie also.
I was, and that was a great experience in Montreal with director Matthew Kassovitz and cinematographer Maddie Lee Batik. And Montreal is a fantastic place. And I was up there with Susan Levine. She was Susan Levine at the time. She was really Joel's right-hand creative person, head of development. And so the two of us went up there to oversee the shoot. And as you said, Robert was not the Robert that we know of now. I mean, I think at the time it was challenging from an insurance perspective to get him onto the picture, but Joel really believed in him and fought for him to be in the picture and made it happen. I mean, Robert, we talked a little bit about Less Than Zero back then, but I remember one early, and I guess maybe it was pre-production. Susan and I were having dinner, just the two of us one night, and we said, "What should we do after dinner?" And she said, "I heard Robert and a few people are going to go be at this restaurant or bar later. Should we go over and hang with them?" And I said, "Well, yeah, why not? I mean, we didn't know what else to do." So we finished dinner. We went over to meet Robert. His trainer was there, Harley Pasternak, I remember, who has become a celebrity trainer and was a great guy. And I think a couple other friends. And we went into a restaurant, and there they were. And we sat down. I mean, I think it was within 2 to 5 minutes that Susan and Robert engaged in a discussion that had so much intensity that the rest of us were like, wait, should we leave or should we hang out? I mean, they were engaged and they were like in their own world right away, and there was an obvious connection. I mean, obviously they knew each other prior to this meeting, but I'm not sure if there had been many, if any, other social engagements that they had been involved with. So we hung out. We were chatting, and they were chatting, and we were, they were very polite. And I think we were there for a little while. We went somewhere else. I don't know. We bar hopped a little bit. I think we went to like 3 bars, and I don't think I had a 5-minute discussion with Robert, and that was fine because we kind of knew something's happening here. Like this is, like something's going on here, and we're really not meant to be a part of it. We were kind of a little bit of a wall or a shield to them, I think, from where we were, at the different places, to create some degree of privacy for them to just continue to talk and get to know each other. And it's really cool. I think that point moving forward, they were a couple, but I think it was very on the down low. I think they kept it very professional and very much on the down low during the shoot. But if you were paying attention, you knew what was happening, and it was really great to see, really happy. And what a team they are. Susan really helped Robert kind of shape and craft his career. Robert would later do Kiss Kiss Bang Bang, which I did not work on. And, just became the biggest star in the world, a little something like that. But it was terrific to be there. I believe, I was there at the genesis of their relationship, and it was great to see.
Oh, it's always nice when you manage to find someone and you really connect. I love that.
Yeah.
But rounding out your journey through horror, your next 2 horror movies face their own real life horrors. So you had The Reaping, which was interrupted by Hurricane Katrina, which I understand resulted in quite an escape from Baton Rouge.
It did. I mean, obviously the reports were not looking good for what was happening in the area. Our line producer, executive producer, Herb Gaines, who's a fabulous producer, the preparation of and the anticipation was a balance that we were trying to figure out and find. And, part of us, you didn't know if maybe it would blow over before it hit landfall. But we were all prepared. Herb was ready to go. The day we bugged out, we were playing golf that morning. I was playing golf with Herb and the visual effects editor on the show, Adam Avery. And I remember Herb getting a call that was going to pull him away from the golf course. And I turned to him and I said, "Can I finish the 18?" I was so stupid. I was like, wait, I'm having a good round. Can I finish? I know you're leaving. And he just sort of laughed, I think, and ran away. And he's like, keep your cell phone close. And I continued playing golf with Adam Avery. I was having a good round. I'm like, should we keep going? I mean, I think we can get 18 in. It was like Caddyshack, I mean, before the storm. I don't think the heavy stuff's going to come down for a while. But it was perfectly clear out. I'm like, what's the big deal? Let's keep going. We played a few more holes. I think my phone rang and it was like, be prepared to leave at 3:00. Okay, went back and cut the round short, but went back and prepared. And people already in the area had been bugging out for some time. We, for some reason, were either holding out hope or, that Hollywood hubris of thinking, well, we can stand this. We've got special effects. I mean, we're a movie crew. I mean, there's nothing going to stop us. Well, we left, we went to Baton Rouge Airport, and Herb had somehow gotten Mark Cuban's plane for us, the Dallas Mavericks plane. I don't know how, to this day, how he finagled his way but he got the Mavericks plane and we all loaded up. I mean, I think at that point, you could see clouds in the distance. We were told that we were the last plane out of Baton Rouge Airport. And I think we knew, okay, this isn't a joke. And this, I mean, it was pretty serious. They took it very serious in terms of prepping and getting us out of there. And we flew to Austin, Texas. And I mean, we were like, what are we going to do? How long are we going to be here? What's the deal? And we saw the devastation and we saw how serious it was. And that's scared us straight. We weren't sure for a while if we were then going to go back and continue shooting. There was lots of discussions that were happening. As I said, we were there for a week, and the determination was made that we should go back, that we should continue shooting, that we wanted to try and create normalcy as quickly as possible. People needed their jobs. We were bringing in economy, and so we went back, and we had to kind of restart again and get geared up. But we went back to shooting pretty quickly. It was quite amazing. There were follow-up storms that were hitting after Katrina, and I remember we were all staying. All the out-of-towners were staying at a condo complex that had amenities and whatnot. So we'd get together and hang out. And I don't know. There was one night shortly after Katrina. We were on the first floor playing cards, and there was a storm outside. And I guess we didn't realize how severe the follow-up storm was, because water started pouring underneath the doors. And it was pretty soon like we were in a flooded situation. I mean, I was lucky my room was on the second floor. So I was like, hey, dude, see you later. Like, good luck with this. Like, if you need some towels, come up and I can help you. I mean, this poor bastard has got like 3 inches of rain in his room. We called off the poker game. And so there was follow-up storms and issues going on. We somehow managed to finish the shoot, but that was an experience to for sure.
Well, I bet you a pair of dry socks.
Oh man.
So okay, then we have House of Wax.
Yes.
And the infamous stage fire that has been the staple of debate since Bill Daly joked about it a couple of weeks back. As you were the man on the ground, what happened?
Well, I was the man on the ground, but and that was another picture I did with Herb Gaines. We joked that the two of us were really jinxes and no one was going to hire us again. We burned down a stage, and then we were there for Katrina. But I was really a wingman, very much a wingman during the shoot to Herb, and I was in Herb's office BSing about something, and again his phone rang. And not mine. And the call came that the stage is on fire. And I'm like, what? And he gets off the phone and he's like, the stage is on fire. I'm like, that's not a good thing. We kind of ran outside. Our bungalow. Our offices were such that we weren't right up against the stage, but we ran outside, kind of ran up to a plateau point, and the stage was on fire. We could see it coming through the roof, and people were running away. And I'm like, what do we do? Like your first inclination is run to it, and then you get to a point and you're like, wait, why am I running towards it? What can I do? I'm not going to like pull a Kurt Russell from Backdraft and run in and pull people out. Like it's a little too late. Like this thing is ablaze. Thankfully, nobody was hurt. And it was contained rather quickly, but there wasn't much left of that stage. I'm going to tell you that, and it was on all the news. And again, we shut down. We're resilient people, and you make a movie, the clock is ticking, and the money is being spent. But thankfully, nobody was hurt, and I don't think we were down very long. I mean, maybe the next day, or we were shooting pretty quickly. I remember Herb called a crew meeting and we talked it out, and I think we went back to work again. Fortunately for us, just from a shooting standpoint, we were able to keep going and move, and there was another stage where we were able to get going. I mean, when nobody really knows exactly how and why, I think it was a special effects issue, only in that I think there were candles being burnt on the stage for the scene. And I don't know if a candle fell over or somebody blew a Ritter fan, into the candle. And I know some curtains caught fire, and it happened. The event, it was like the helicopter crash. The event happened really fast. Like it went up and went down really fast. And again, it's really remarkable that nobody was hurt and everybody bugged out quickly because the crew was intelligent. Nobody tried to go find I don't know if somebody did. I wasn't there, but I can't imagine somebody tried to find a fire extinguisher and said, I'll put this out. But I mean, everybody got out, and look, Roadshow got a new stage out of it. Many years later, Lynn Benzie, was like, oh, we got a brand new state-of-the-art stage. So I was like, oh, great. Well, you know where we are if you need us again to come here and torch a set for you. I mean, out of the ashes came state-of-the-art equipment. So, but yeah, obviously a scary experience that you never want to happen. Fortunately, nobody was hurt. And I heard Bill say that maybe, first of all, Mr. Daly, if you're listening, I mean, I heard him intimate that I might have been smoking. I've never smoked in my life. Well, that I'll admit to, but I wasn't on set at the time, and it wasn't. I know it wasn't a cigarette or anything. And yes, somebody shot something on their phone camera, which I did see, but I do not have a copy of it. Phone cameras were pretty in the nascent days of quality. But yeah, you could see what was happening quickly. Somebody, I don't know, broke their phone out. And so we did see it. But I wanted nothing to do with procuring that piece of footage. But it does exist. Somebody has it, I'm guessing. And as said, most importantly, nobody was hurt.
Yes, it's kind of hanging around side by side with the full version of Ricochet, those two pieces of footage. Mm. So you've maintained very positive relationships and friendships over your years, including with director Scott Cooper, who you produced Black Mass with. I'm a huge fan of Scott Cooper ever since I saw Out of the Furnace. I think he is a fantastic director. And I actually have a great Richard Mirisch story that I have never told you before.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you now. When I came to meet you at Legendary Pictures in Burbank, this was about 4 or 5 years ago, I think. Uh-huh. When I got to the building, I got to the elevators there, and I'm green as hell, just wearing jeans, shirt, whatever, wondering how the hell I got invited to this place. And I must have looked lost because I didn't expect to end up at Legendary. So as I'm getting in the elevator, this executive-looking guy gets in the elevator with me. And just me and him in there. And he's looking me up and down, looking at me like, this guy must be lost. He's probably spent more on lunch than I paid in rent for that month. Okay. And he turns to me and asks, what floor are you going to? And I'm like, it's the top floor, because that's where we were meeting.
Right.
And he takes a second and he's still looking me up and down. And he's like, how this guy got in here? I am shady looking when I look like I didn't even feel like I should have been there.
You're just so tall and imposing, you're a big.
I know. This guy was pretty tall himself.
Okay.
As I remember it. And he takes a second and he asks, who am I meeting? And I say, I'm here to meet Richard Mirisch. His tone totally changes. And suddenly he's like, oh, Richard Mirisch is here. What a guy. Tell him so-and-so says hello. And he shakes my hand and leaves the floor before us. And I'm there like, what the hell just happened? And that is the Richard Mirisch effect. Every time that if I've met you or we've gotten together, everyone has always said what a genuine guy you are. And you have been since all the time that I've known you. And I don't remember that guy's name.
I thought you were going to say it was Scott Cooper.
It might have been Scott Cooper. I don't know.
Well, thank you. That's nice to hear, and I appreciate that. And whoever that was, cool. That was really I pull the wool over someone else's eyes. I've got them right where I want them, thinking I'm a good guy. Being a good guy in my business, actually, it's different maybe now than it was 10, 20 years ago. Truthfully, I have never been much of a shark. And that's probably why certain things that maybe I wanted to do or, didn't happen, because I've never been really entirely cutthroat or willing to sell my soul. And same way Keanu didn't in Devil's Advocate. I've kind of like managed to just look at what I've been doing and enjoy the ride. For me, the greatest thing is working with a group of people and collaborating, and you got to show mutual respect, and for everybody has a job to do, and you work as a team. I'm a huge sport guy. I love team sports, and I kind of look at working on a movie as similarly like you're a big team. If you want to be successful, you have to make everybody feel like what they're doing is important, and you can't put yourself above anybody else either. So I've tried to act that way. We've all had our moments, but hopefully you carry on and you treat people the way you want them to treat you.
Definitely. Well, that's it. Around that time, you were doing Godzilla, King of the Monsters, I believe, because you travelled up from the Warner Brothers lot to meet me at Legendary. And we've covered kind of particles of your career here, but we have to mention Godzilla versus Kong. And this is obviously the first movie to break the post-pandemic box office. And for this movie, I understand you practically left the office on Friday and were on location from a Monday. Is that right?
Well, pretty much. I mean, we were aware, obviously, what was happening in the world with COVID, and we had started to make preparations. And we didn't know, again, are we going to shut down, go on a hiatus until we can come back? We were, end of February, early March, we were all a bit in the dark about what was happening and how long this would last. But the people at Legendary, again, we very smart in terms of preparing us. We talked about a remote situation. We were in a good place with the picture, and we were about to preview it. But so the movie was pretty much intact. So instead of shutting down, we decided to create a remote workflow, and we got that into place. And look, I left my office on a Friday, I think it was, and packed up and went home, not knowing how long we'd be working at home. And we started Zooming with each other every morning. We had a group Zoom of the core people, and thankfully the remote Avid systems were jacked into the storage, and we had virtual networks set up that everybody could continue to work. And we just started working. We kept a schedule. We looked at the schedule. We were working on whatever final picture changes. I mean, the biggest question we had was, are we going to preview? And it became pretty obvious that we were not going to be able to get a preview in. We discussed doing remote previews and different things, but they finally made a decision we weren't going to preview. Let's finish the movie. And then, we had to work hand in hand with Warner Brothers to figure out how to mix the picture, and also Company 3 with how to time the picture. The visual effects were all kind of being finished, so the visual effects team really had their own workflow in place. And so it was a lot of on the fly, figuring out what to do and stay safe. Safety, again, was always the most important thing, but we managed to stay on schedule and get the picture done and delivered when we were supposed to. That's just, again, a great team effort and just moving in a different direction. Again, I left that Friday. I think I saw Wingard, the director, and the editor at a screening, not a premiere screening, but we were allowed 3 or 4 people at the color timing. I think I saw them once or twice, but a lot of those people, we were Zooming every day, but I haven't seen them yet since. And yet somehow we finished the movie. The movie came out. The movie did really well. And we're really thankful and pleased how it turned out. And again, it was a great lesson of what can be done when you have some ingenuity and resourcefulness You put that together, that Hollywood spirit, man, we get it done. Like no matter what, where, Katrina, burning down a stage or COVID, that won't stop us. We're going to get the picture done no matter what. And we did. And, funnily also, Herb Gaines is the head of production at Legendary. So I don't know. I really do think, Herb and I have this track record, burn down stage, Katrina, and now you can add COVID to it, but so I listen, I don't know, but we got it done.
On a side note, before I actually ask the next question, I was actually in Mexico City when you guys were filming King of the Monsters.
Right.
I was there with my ex, and the friend of hers was touring us around, and what's going down there? Oh, they're filming the new Godzilla film. It's like, oh, right, brilliant, yeah. Yes, anyway, so going back to Godzilla versus Kong. Now, what was the biggest surprise from it? Was it the box office opening, the Rotten Tomatoes freshness score, or was it the fact that you were moving on to streaming on HBO Max?
I think all those things. You always hope that you get a good response and that the movie does well. And no matter what you're doing, whether I'm working on The Apparition or Godzilla vs. Kong. I think we kind of knew with The Apparition we weren't going to make a lot of box office with that picture. But you hoped with Godzilla vs. Kong that the picture was going to do well. But again, with the day and date situation, obviously it was a surprise that they were going to do that, and nobody really knew how that would work. We were very lucky that when the picture opened, theaters were opening up, and there was such a pent up in the States. And certainly in China, it did huge numbers its opening weekend. It opened in China the week before it opened in the States, and that was really a great sign. But we were lucky enough that enough theaters had opened that people were dying to get out, and go see a movie. It's always harder to know exactly how to track the streaming numbers, but from what I'm told and understand, it did quite well streaming and the box office. So maybe the two forms of exhibition can coexist. That's a work in progress that Hollywood is currently figuring out. We were pleasantly surprised, I think, with the Rotten Tomatoes score. You always speculate. What do you think we're going to be? Are we going to be here? Are we going to be there? And the ultimate number was a bit higher, I think, than what we were estimating or guesstimating. I think critics were also just thrilled to go see a movie in a theater. For many of them, I think it was one of their first movies to go and review in a theater. And quite honestly, the movie's fun. It doesn't take itself so seriously. The effects are tremendous. And you got Kong in it, and Kong is so relatable, and the relationship with Gia, I think, is very strong. And, I think that people maybe who would normally go to an effects picture, with Kong, he's a different leading man. And so I think maybe some people who wouldn't have normally gone to see this kind of movie went to see it. So all around, a big win from the box office to the streaming to the Rotten Tomatoes. And after what we all went through, the timing, we caught a really great break with the timing, I believe. And I know Legendary and Warner Brothers are quite thrilled with how it did and the picture it was.
Well, definitely. And Richard, your family has a lot of hard-earned success, as we've mentioned, and there's so much more that's worth mentioning. We're going to have to bring you back on to talk even more, and especially with The Matrix 4 being released this year, it would be fun to go and revisit that first one and talk some more on it, as well as mentioning, within your family circle, you've got your aunt who is the trailblazing and iconic agent at ICM, Tony Howard, who handles the careers of people like Samuel L. Jackson, Michael Caine, Christopher Walken, Spike Lee, so many more. We also have your other aunt, Mitzi McCall, and her husband, Charlie Brill. They were on the Ed Sullivan Show the same night as the Beatles, which is just incredible. And obviously,
how crazy is that?
That is very crazy. And obviously, as you mentioned earlier, your stepfather, Leonard Goldberg, such an illustrious producer by himself and with Aaron Spelling and being the head of 20th Century Fox, and a bit of trivia also. He's the man who created the movie of the week for ABC. in the early 70s. And these are all things that we really want to hear about and want to kind of get you back to talk about. But obviously, we can't have a guest on the show without asking them to nominate 5.
Now's the time to nominate 5.
Nominate 5?
Yes, nominate 5. Not 3 or 4 or 6 or 9. Now's the time to nominate 5.
I bet you he thought we were going to add that in post.
No, we do it live, damn it.
You know what? I did. I thought you were going to add it in post. You know, everybody always says, fix it in post, fix it in post. But you know, if you can get it while you're shooting practically, that's always the way to go. But so good job. Good job.
Exactly.
We do it to hear the reaction from the people who have no idea it's coming. But the thing is, you actually know about it. So
I did. I've listened to it, and is that Steve singing? By the way, is that
no? That is our wonderful composer Neil Priddy, who was our guest on our second show. He's responsible for recording pretty much all of the music that we use in both Poddywood and Poddywood After Dark. So
by himself as well.
Yeah,
a one-man band.
He does a good job.
He does. Well, Nominate 5, it's the section of the show every week where we ask our guest, if we have one, and obviously when we don't have one as well, to nominate 5 within movies that they say are recommended for people to go and discover. And obviously with having a Mirisch on the show, we've got to ask for the 5 best movies with the name Mirisch behind it. So, I don't even know if I should curse it by saying a countdown. Because it never goes right.
No, it never goes right. Always, every single week, we end up... It's never a countdown. It's always in chronological order. It's in alphabetical order. It's in whatever order the guest decides to pull them out of the hat. So,
or it's only 3 if you're Bill Daly, or 7. He's never even managed a 5 yet.
Well, that'll be Bill.
That'll be Bill. So,
well, I'll do 5 for you.
Okay. Well, we'll count down backwards from 5. So, starting with number 5, Richard, what do we have?
I'm going to go with The Apartment as number 5.
Mm-hmm. Brilliant.
Billy Wilder's picture with Jack Lemmon and Shirley MacLaine and Fred McMurray. And it's a wonderful picture. If you watch it now, it certainly feels dated. Such a different time. But what isn't dated is Jack Lemmon's performance and all of the performances. And it's a terrific social commentary of the time of 1960. I think it won Best Picture and is one of Billy's best.
Agreed. It is an absolutely amazing choice.
Put it in the box.
It's in the box.
Oh, it's in the box. Oh,
yeah.
Right. Okay. Because I'm going to be honest, I have not seen it.
I don't think a lot of people of our generation probably have. I mean, it's on Turner Classic quite a bit, but yeah, it's a movie to seek out and check out.
Okay, then. Well, in that case, what is going to be your 4th choice?
So my 4th choice is West Side Story,
yes.
Which is one of the Mirisch pictures that I saw at an early age and was wowed by for so many reasons. I mean, the music and you know, I think it's the first musical I saw, and seeing people break into song and into dance in New York City but then have this rough story of these 2 gangs, and then at the center a love story. You know, I mean, I don't think I knew Romeo and Juliet at the time. So I was pretty, blown away by all of it. I think that's a picture that certainly still holds up, unless you're Steven Spielberg and feel like it needs to be remade. You know, which, as you guys know, there's a trailer out there, and they're remaking that, and I think that's coming out in December. So it will be interesting to see that, to see what Mr. Spielberg did.
I didn't know they were remaking it. That is interesting.
No, I actually saw they were holding auditions for it here in the UK. I'm surprised you didn't go for it, Steve.
Well, I can't dance. I can sing a little, but my God, I cannot dance. So there's no way that I'm putting myself through that one.
Oh, Steve, you could have been a shark. I see you. You could have been a
Yeah,
shark.
I have so little natural rhythm every time I have sex. I have to have a metronome on the pillow.
But yeah, we'll see if it's this year's Cats, by the way. So let's go for number 3.
Number 3 is going to be a picture called "In the Heat of the Night."
Brilliant.
It's a picture that won the Oscar in '67 with the great Sidney Poitier and Rod Steiger, and in iconic roles, directed by Norman Jewison. And this is unlike The Apartment. Again, this is a cultural masterpiece of what was going on in America with the civil rights situation in the 60s. It's still relevant, very relevant movie that should be watched. Whereas The Apartment is of a totally different era. It was made 7 years later, and here we are, 50 years later. And honestly, I'd say The Apartment is dated. In the Heat of the Night is not dated, and it still has so much to teach us. It's a knockout. It really is a knockout, on again, so many levels.
Yeah, it's a timeless movie that, unlike West Side Story and especially Magnificent Seven as well, you can't remake it because it doesn't need remaking.
Well,
it speaks to every generation.
They did, look, there was a series on that Carol O'Connor and Howard Rollins were in that ran for many years. I don't know if they're going to remake it. It could be remade with a proper twist, with a contemporary twist. Hollywood is so eager to remake everything. And when you've got a property that has name brand, they look to reimagine it and anything you can do to get publicity or an audience to watch it will do. And listen, I'm not saying, again, Spielberg's doing West Side Story because he honestly feels like he can redo it in a contemporary way. And so it will be really interesting. It'll be like 60 years after the first one came out. And, but when you watch, just to go back to West Side Story, listen, I understand Natalie Wood was not Latina and she didn't sing her own songs. And so I'm sure Spielberg's will be very politically correct, where back in that age and that era, things were very different. So we'll see. I don't know if In the Heat of the Night will be remade, but there's probably an interesting spin to still be had on it.
Okay, well, some great choices so far. So what is going to be number 2?
Well, I was going to go number 2 with a movie that I had worked on, but honestly, because the family legacy is so strong, I'm not sure any of the pictures I've worked on compete with any of them. And as we talked about, the Magnificent Seven or Great Escape and Pink Panther, but I got to put one in there for myself. I think one of them would be apropos. And the obvious choice when you look at my IMDb is The Matrix. So, I would put The Matrix, if I'm putting up pictures like The Apartment, West Side Story, and The Heat of the Night, I better come strong and correct with a strong film that I've worked on. And The Matrix would be it, but it's not really unknown. I would say Black Mass is a terrific movie, an underrated picture. And if you haven't seen it, it's a picture worth seeing, and masterfully directed by Scott Cooper, who is, I think, one of our best directors working today. He does not compromise. He does not compromise his vision, and it may not always be mainstream, and you may not always feel good coming out of his movies. But for him, the experience, the story he's telling combined with the experience that he wants you to have, it's not always feel-good time. He forces you to reflect and dig deep. Working with him and on that film, that was a great experience for me. And fortunately, we've become really good friends since. He's gearing up to make another movie now. And I wish I could work on it, but I'm booked. So I'm certain we will work together again. But yeah, I would say Black Mass.
Yeah, definitely. He's been a huge influence on me as well, with a lot of his movies that are very uncompromising. And he definitely left an imprint on a movie that I'm currently working on getting into production now, which was very much in the style after I saw Out of the Furnace. So when you do see him, tell him thank you very much from me.
I will. Out of the Furnace is it's a deeply intense picture, and after you see it, you may just want to like go hide in a closet for an hour or two and just come to grips with your thoughts.
Definitely.
But it's also a really terrific film.
Okay, well, I guess after all that, we have counted down to the big number one.
Number one is no drum roll necessary. Number one is Some Like It Hot, and Some Like It Hot, made in 1959 with again Jack Lemmon and Tony Curtis and Marilyn Monroe, directed by Billy Wilder. It's a movie that you can see that picture time and time again. It's made of a certain era. I mean, it's in black and white, even though they had color. But that was done on purpose, so you really couldn't judge the makeup that Jack and Tony were in during the film. It's just a movie that is still very funny, and it's just a joy to watch. I've seen it so many times. And it's a remote drop for me, it's on wherever it's at. You just stop and watch it. I love that movie. I love that picture. I know it's been seen and it's been lauded by AFI as I think the top comedy of all time. So it's not a sexy pick for number one, but I'm a mainstream kind of guy. And like, if I got to pick one, I'm going to go with Some Like It Hot.
No. Justified in choosing that. It is a timeless movie.
And a massive congratulations to you for actually getting them in numerical order. I think you might actually be the second guest to do that.
I think it's him and Jay Oliva are currently neck and neck for the best. It's always the Warner Brothers guys, unless your name is Bill. But Richard, it's absolutely fantastic having you on today, and thank you so much for freeing up so much of your time over these 2 episodes. And we know that you've got some amazing projects coming on that you can't mention yet, but we're hoping you're going to come back and tell us about them when you can. Because obviously your future is just absolutely catapulted forward, and we look forward to seeing what you'll do. And we look forward to seeing you on the screen, and we look forward to hearing what's in the box.
What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box? What's in the box?
17
Nice
weeks
segue.
on, and I'm still playing air guitar.
It's amazing. This has actually become the favourite part of the show for most of the people who actually listen.
I mean, you guys are pretty good, but I don't know. Maybe Neil may need to like step in here, and we might need to copyright that and get some revenue generating for Pottywood from the What's in the Box theme.
Yeah, we should put it out
We're working on the t-shirts.
No.
There you go.
We get a t-shirt. We expect you to wear a What's in the Box t-shirt on set, Richard.
Didn't Justin Timberlake and Andy Samberg already have that covered? But I mean,
Oh, yes.
we can
Dick in
let
a
our
box.
mind flow. Yeah, exactly. We can let our mind drift.
Okay, Steve, explain What's in the Box while I dig out your selection.
Okay, well, What's in the Box is the part of the show where Andy tries to improve my movie education by trying to get me away from video games and more kind of mainstream movies which feature car chases and explosions. Now, he's going to pick out a name of a film that he certified fresh from Rotten Tomatoes out of the box, and if I haven't seen it, then I have to go away and watch it the night before we record the next episode. If I have seen it, then we just keep picking out names until we find one that I haven't. So, Andy, what do you have for us?
Okay, well, I'm not taking any chances this week because every time I've picked out one on its own, you've seen one and I have to go rummaging again. So I've picked 5 out just to be sure.
5, bloody hell.
Okay. And some of them I'm even sure that you have actually seen. First one I've picked out is The Lost Boys,
Yep.
which you have seen because I introduced you to it.
You guys didn't introduce me to that film. I'd already seen that film years before, but we did actually watch it at yours one night because Kate wanted to watch it.
Oh, okay, fair enough. All right.
There you go.
You're so polite. You could have just said I've seen it. Okay. Come on. You must have seen Total Recall, the Arnie version.
Oh yeah, the Arnie version. I haven't seen the Colin Farrell one yet, but no, definitely seen
this
the
is
Arnie.
it. We've done 2 down. Willie
Good job,
breaks the
Aston
record
Mars.
with the third one.
Goodness.
I hate when you do that Arnie impression. Okay. Okay. The third one is Midnight Express from 1978.
Midnight Express. No, I haven't.
Oh, phew! Thank God for
Ooh, dude. Oh my. Oh boy.
that. I've put him through some torture with some movies.
God, yeah, that's the smuggling one, isn't it?
You're going to be in the box after you watch that, man.
Wait, what's the other one that I was thinking of? I think it's like an escape movie, which has got a similar name. Midnight Run.
Yes.
No, Midnight Run is brilliant.
Can I watch that instead?
No.
You couldn't pick 2 completely different movies if you wanted to. By the way, you haven't seen Midnight Run?
No, I haven't seen that either.
Well, here's what you do. Watch Midnight Express and then immediately put on Midnight Run right afterwards, because if you live with your thoughts after Midnight Express, you're going to be a changed man after that. But wow, I remember seeing that, Andrew, the first time, and that there are certain movies, right, where you watch and you have an experience and you remember that experience. Well, Steve, get ready for Midnight Express, and don't plan to be near any people after you watch it either for a while. Just.
Well, the trouble is, I usually watch these movies with my girlfriend. We get into bed together. We put the TV on at the bottom of the bed, and for weeks now she's been going, "Oh, why do you never pick out anything that's fun?" She's gonna absolutely adore me after I tell her what we're gonna watch next week.
I think more likely she's going to leave you after she watches it.
She probably is, yeah.
I mean, no disrespect, Andrew's giving you. I mean, it's an unbelievable movie. Yes, you gotta watch it, and you will be changed after you watch it.
Yes.
Well, so far on the list of the torments, it started with Casualties of War.
Yeah, that was yeah.
Then you had to watch that movie about vaginal teeth called Teeth.
That I don't know which one was worse, to be honest.
Well,
Teeth was just an unpleasant film, but Casualties of War was. Oof.
Hold your breath, darling. Midnight Express is on its way. So next week, we will look forward to hearing your thoughts on Midnight Express.
Yeah, it's not really going to be thoughts; it's more going to be therapy.
Very true. But Richard, again, thank you very much. We look forward to having you on the show again. Thank you for all your generous time.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure, and I got to hear what Steve has to say about Midnight Express. So I'll be tuning in.
Oh, you will.
Oh, you can tune in. We probably won't have a guest that week because Steve will be crying.
Steve, my goodness, you gotta I'm telling you, I don't know if the girlfriend really is gonna want to watch this one with you, but
I'm gonna have to watch it on my own now.
Yeah, I think that's probably best. Yeah.
Just make sure you've got a pane of glass between you and the girlfriend. It'll come in handy.
Oh boy! Oh my God.
Right. So that is the end of this show. Thank you, Richard, and we will see everyone at Poddywood After Dark.
Yes, and in the meantime, don't forget, you can reach us out on Facebook and Twitter, both at Poddywood. You can find us on the subreddit of r/Poddywood, and Poddywood is now available on all major podcast releases, including Audible. But for now, I bid you adieu. No funny line this week.
You just said it.